I dedicated 10 years of my life to Tech Fusion Solutions, building their engineering department from the ground up. My team delivered countless successful projects that grew the company from a startup to an industry leader. So when I was called into HR on an ordinary Monday morning, I never expected to hear my boss Derek say, "Gilbert, you are simply earning too much for what we need now." I cleared my management desk without complaint, maintaining my professionalism until the very end. What they never anticipated was the wave of panic calls that would start flooding in just days later. Before I tell you how this corporate betrayal transformed my career, drop a comment sharing where you are watching from and hit subscribe if you have ever been undervalued at work. I graduated with my engineering degree in 2008, right as the economy crashed and the job market collapsed. After 6 months of desperate searching and over 100 applications, I finally landed an entry-level software engineer position at Tech Fusion Solutions. Back then, it was a small tech company with about 30 employees, outdated systems, and disorganized processes. But it was a job when many of my classmates were still unemployed, so I was grateful. From day one, I noticed inefficiencies everywhere. The development team had no documentation, source control was virtually non-existent, and everyone seemed to work in isolation. Rather than just complaining, I started creating documentation after hours, implementing basic version control, and organizing weekly sync-ups without being asked. My manager at the time, Richard, took notice. "You think like a leader, Gilbert," he told me during my 6-month review. "Keep this up and you will go far here." I took those words to heart and continued pouring myself into improving our processes. When our team struggled to meet deadlines for an important client project, I volunteered to stay late for 2 weeks straight to ensure we delivered on time. The client was so impressed with the result that they doubled their contract with us. By my second year, Richard promoted me to team lead when he moved up to director. The promotion came with more responsibilities, but only a modest 5% raise. Still, I was excited about the opportunity to make a bigger impact. Over the next 3 years, I led the development of Tech Fusion's flagship product, a cloud-based enterprise resource planning system that would eventually increase company revenue by 40%. Those years were intense. I missed my brother's wedding because we were in the final testing phase before a major release. I regularly worked 12-hour days and most weekends. My girlfriend at the time now, my wife Anna, patiently supported me even when I had to cancel date nights because of production issues. When my father was hospitalized for a week, I took my laptop to the hospital and worked from the waiting room between visits. After 5 years with the company, Richard left for another opportunity, and I was promoted to engineering manager. The company had grown to over 100 employees by then, and I was responsible for building and mentoring a team of 15 engineers. I implemented agile methodologies, created a more collaborative environment, and focused on professional development for my team members. Our department's retention rate was the highest in the company, and we consistently delivered projects on or ahead of schedule. As Tech Fusion grew, so did the recognition from our industry. 3 times over the years, competitors approached me with offers that would have significantly increased my salary. The first offer came when I had just been promoted to manager, offering a 30% increase. The second came 2 years later, with a 40% increase plus better benefits. The third most tempting offer came from our biggest competitor, offering nearly double my salary plus equity. Each time I declined. I believed in loyalty. I had helped build Tech Fusion from a struggling startup to a respected industry player. My team felt like family, and I was proud of what we were accomplishing together. When I mentioned the third offer to Richard's replacement, our CTO Paul, he assured me that my loyalty would be rewarded. "We could not function without you," Gilbert, Paul said. "I will talk to the executive team about adjusting your compensation package." The adjustment came in the form of a 5% raise and some additional stock options that would vest over 5 years. It was nowhere near competitive, but I accepted it as a sign of their appreciation. Everything changed 3 years ago when venture capital firm Axion Partners acquired a controlling stake in Tech Fusion. They installed a new CEO, Marcus Wright, and a new CFO, Derek Sanders. From their first company-wide meeting, it was clear that their focus was solely on cutting costs and increasing shareholder value. "We need to operate leaner and meaner," Marcus announced. "Every dollar spent must provide measurable return on investment." The changes came swiftly. Annual retreats were canceled. The education reimbursement program was slashed. Free lunches became monthly instead of weekly. The relaxed work environment that had fostered creativity was replaced by rigid reporting structures and constant metrics tracking. Through it all, my team continued to exceed expectations. We adapted to the new requirements, met the increasingly aggressive deadlines, and maintained product quality despite shrinking resources. Last year, we delivered a major platform upgrade that allowed the company to increase pricing and add 3 new enterprise clients. My most recent performance review had been glowing. Paul described me as an exceptional contributor and praised my team's outputs. Yet despite company profits soaring 28% that year, I received the standard 3% raise. When I pulled market compensation data showing that I was being paid 25% below industry average for my position and experience, Paul seemed genuinely surprised. "You know, Gilbert, you are absolutely right," he admitted. "Let me take this to Derek and Marcus. We value you tremendously. Let us review the numbers and get back to you." I left that meeting feeling cautiously optimistic. After 10 years of dedication and proven results, surely they would see the value in bringing my compensation in line with market rates. That was Friday. On Monday morning, an email from HR was waiting in my inbox when I arrived at the office. The message was brief: "Please attend an urgent meeting in conference room B at 9 a.m. with Derek and Lisa from HR. I assumed it was about my compensation request and felt a spark of optimism. Perhaps they had decided to adjust my salary after all. I arrived at the conference room precisely at 9, coffee in hand, and prepared to discuss numbers. What I found instead sent a chill down my spine. Derek sat at the head of the table with an unfamiliar woman who introduced herself as Lisa, the new HR director I had yet to meet. Most concerning was the presence of a security guard standing silently by the door. "Gilbert, please have a seat." Derek gestured without standing to greet me. As I sat down, Derek slid a folder across the table. "After reviewing our management structure, we have determined your position is redundant. Your compensation package has become unsustainable for the role." The words hit me like a physical blow. 10 years of dedication dismissed in a single sentence. "I do not understand," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "My team just delivered the platform upgrade that increased our enterprise client base by 30%. My last review was exceptional." Derek nodded mechanically. "Your performance is not the issue. This is strictly a business decision. We can hire 2 junior managers for what we pay you. The board feels this is a more efficient allocation of resources." Lisa opened her folder. "We are prepared to offer you 8 weeks of severance pay, which is generous considering most positions at your level receive only 4. 8 weeks. For 10 years of service." I felt a surge of anger that I carefully contained behind a professional facade. "When would this take effect?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Immediately, Derek replied, checking his watch. "Lisa will walk you through the severance paperwork, and then security will escort you to your desk to collect personal items." The next 30 minutes passed in a surreal blur. Lisa detailed the severance package, explained my benefits would terminate at the end of the month, and pushed forms across the table for my signature. I read each one carefully, despite her impatient sighs refusing to be rushed through my own termination. When we finished, the security guard stepped forward. The walk to my office felt like a prisoner's march, with curious and concerned glances from colleagues who quickly averted their eyes. At my desk, Lisa handed me a cardboard box. "Please limit yourself to personal items only. Company documents, equipment, and intellectual property must remain." I methodically packed my family photos, engineering awards, and the few personal books I kept at the office. Despite the humiliation burning in my chest, I organized the transition notes I had been preparing for my upcoming vacation, leaving them prominently on my desk with clear labels. I updated the project status document one last time and saved it to the shared drive. Paul appeared in the doorway, his face ashen. "Gilbert, I had no idea. They did not consult me on this decision." "It is what it is," I replied, not wanting to put him in an awkward position. "The project documentation is up to date. Jessica knows most of the current initiatives, but no one has been trained on the Jenkins pipeline configuration." He nodded, clearly uncomfortable. "I am sorry it ended this way." After packing my few belongings, I surrendered my laptop, company phone, and security badge. Derek reappeared as I was finishing. "The company is moving in a new direction that unfortunately does not include legacy employees at your compensation level," he stated flatly. "We wish you success in your future endeavors." I simply nodded, picked up my box, and followed the security guard to the exit. The morning sunlight felt harsh and exposing as I walked to my car. I sat there for 30 minutes, staring at the building where I had spent a decade of my life trying to process what had just happened. When I finally called Anna, my voice cracked despite my best efforts. "They fired me," I said simply. "Apparently I cost too much." Her outrage on my behalf was comforting, but we both knew the timing was terrible. We had just put a down payment on a new house, and Anna was 3 months pregnant with our first child. That evening, I reviewed our finances, updated my resume, and sent discreet messages to a few trusted industry contacts. I drafted a LinkedIn post announcing my availability, but stopped short of publishing it, wanting to process my thoughts first. Out of curiosity, I checked TechFusion's careers page. There was already engineering manager, with a listed salary range 40% lower than what I had been making. They had planned this well in advance. My initial anger began transforming into something more calculated. I reviewed my employment contract and non-compete agreement, finding several interesting clauses that might prove useful. I also realized something critical. Despite my efforts to create documentation, there were significant aspects of our systems that existed only in my head. I had tried for years to get approval for proper knowledge management systems and training time. Each request had been denied as not essential to current priorities. I had compensated by becoming the go-to person for troubleshooting and crisis management. Rather than rushing into action, I decided to take a week to clear my head and consider my options carefully. I declined to answer calls from unknown numbers and focused on taking care of myself and supporting Anna. The right opportunity would come if I was patient. I had no idea how quickly TechFusion would make that opportunity appear. 3 days after my termination, my phone lit up with a text from Ryan, one of the junior engineers on my former team. Production deployment failed. System returning critical errors. Nobody knows how to fix it. What should I do? I stared at the message for several minutes before responding. You will need to contact management. I no longer work for TechFusion. Within hours, my phone was ringing constantly. First, Jessica, my former team lead. Gilbert, we are drowning. Nobody knows how the Jenkins pipeline works. The documentation mentions configurations that we cannot find. Then Paul. This was a terrible mistake. We need you to consult for a few days to help us through this transition. I let all calls go to voicemail, focusing instead on an interview I had scheduled with Nexus Technologies, a mid-sized competitor. The interview went well, with the hiring manager expressing interest in my experience building and leading engineering teams. By day 5, the situation at TechFusion had apparently escalated dramatically. My former assistant sent a text, "For your information, Global Corp is threatening to pull their $1 million contract if the platform issues are not resolved by Friday." Derek is freaking out. That evening, I received a voicemail from Derek himself. "Gilbert, we need some transition information. Call me back as soon as possible." His voice lacked its usual arrogance, replaced by barely concealed panic. I deleted the message without responding and went to dinner with Anna to celebrate a promising second interview with Apex Technologies, TechFusion's largest competitor. On day 7, my phone rang with a number I did not recognize. Curious, I answered. "Gilbert, this is Marcus Wright. The CEO himself was calling. We have a situation that requires your expertise. I would like to bring you in as a consultant to help resolve some critical issues." "I am listening," I replied neutrally. "We would pay you $200 per hour for a 20-hour minimum engagement to help transition your knowledge and resolve the current system issues." I nearly laughed at the lowball offer. "Marcus, my consulting rate is $500 per hour, with a 40-hour minimum paid up front. I would also need a signed consulting agreement drafted by my attorney before I set foot in the building." There was a long silence before Marcus responded. "That seems excessive." So did terminating a dedicated employee of 10 years for cost-cutting, while the company reported record profits, I countered. "Those are my terms." After another pause. "Fine. Have your attorney send over the agreement. We need you to start tomorrow." The next morning, I arrived at TechFusion with a detailed consulting agreement that protected my interests and clearly defined the scope of work. The receptionist's eyes widened as I walked in, and whispers followed me to the conference room. Derek was waiting, his expression a mixture of resentment and relief. "Let us keep this professional and efficient," he said without preamble. "That is exactly how I operate," I replied, setting up my personal laptop. "I will need access to the system and current error logs." For the next week, I methodically documented every aspect of the systems I had built and maintained. I created detailed troubleshooting guides, held training sessions with the engineering team, and fixed the critical issues that had caused the production failure. I was careful to work exactly 40 hours, not a minute more. What became immediately apparent was the chaos that had ensued after my departure. Derek had reorganized the team without understanding the technical dependencies, separated engineers who needed to collaborate, and assigned critical systems to junior staff without proper training. I documented everything thoroughly, ensuring that my knowledge transfer was complete and comprehensible. When Derek tried to rush me through sections he deemed less important, I firmly stuck to my professional methodology. You are paying for my expertise, I reminded him. That includes knowing which systems require detailed documentation. By day 3, most of the critical issues were resolved, and the team was functioning again. The relief among my former colleagues was palpable, though they were careful not to show too much appreciation in front of Derek. On my final day, I delivered a comprehensive transition document, not just to Derek, but to the entire board of directors, copying Paul and the engineering team leads. The document included not only technical details but also recommendations for team structure and risk management that highlighted the vulnerabilities created by recent management decisions. As I packed up my consulting laptop, Jessica approached me in the parking lot. Most of the team is updating their resumes, she whispered. This place is falling apart without you. There are plenty of good companies looking for talented engineers, I replied, handing her my personal business card. I drove away from Tech Fusion for the final time, this time on my own terms with $20,000 in consulting fees and a valuable lesson learned about corporate loyalty. 2 weeks after completing my consulting work for Tech Fusion, I sat in the sleek conference room at Apex Technologies for my final interview. The chief technology officer, a woman named Diane, who had built her reputation on ethical leadership and technical excellence, smiled as she entered. Gilbert, your reputation precedes you, she said warmly. We were impressed by your work, long before recent events. The interview felt more like a conversation between respected colleagues than an evaluation. We discussed technical architecture, team-building philosophies, and the future of the industry. When the topic turned to compensation, Diane was refreshingly direct. We want you as our director of engineering, she stated. We are prepared to offer a base salary of $180,000, which is 50% higher than your previous position, plus our standard benefits package and remote flexibility. For the first time in my career, I negotiated from a position of strength. I discussed market rates for the role, highlighted my specific expertise, and outlined the value I would bring to Apex. We settled on $195,000, with additional performance bonuses and flexible work arrangements that would be crucial with a baby on the way. When I accepted the offer, Diane shook my hand firmly. Welcome to a company that values its talent, Gilbert. We invest in people who invest in us. 1 month into my new role at Apex, I posted a simple announcement on LinkedIn, excited to join Apex Technologies as Director of Engineering. Looking forward to building innovative solutions with this talented team. The post received hundreds of congratulatory comments, including many from my former Tech Fusion colleagues. Within days, I received private messages from 5 of my former team members asking about opportunities at Apex. Following proper protocols, I referred them to our HR department. 4 of them were hired within the next 2 months. As I built my new team at Apex, I implemented the systems and culture I had always envisioned: comprehensive documentation, knowledge sharing, professional development pathways, and recognition for contributions at all levels. Our first major project was delivered ahead of schedule and under budget, earning recognition from Apex's executive team. 6 months after my termination from Tech Fusion Industry, news reported that the company had missed 2 quarterly targets and their stock had dropped 30%. A former colleague who still worked there mentioned that Derek had been placed on a performance improvement plan after what executives called an exodus of key talent. The irony of my new situation became apparent when Apex assigned my team to integrate software systems for 3 former Tech Fusion clients who had switched to our services. The clients specifically requested me as the project lead, having remembered my work from previous engagements. 1 year after that fateful Monday morning, Anna and I celebrated our son's 3rd-month birthday in our new home. My flexible work arrangement allowed me to be present for doctor's appointments, midnight feedings, and precious family moments I would have missed in my previous role. That same week, I received news that Tech Fusion was undergoing restructuring after continued losses. Derek had been terminated, and the company was desperately trying to rebuild its engineering department. Paul Still, the CTO, reached out to me directly. They realized their mistake now, he said during our lunch meeting. Would you consider coming back in a senior leadership role? They would match your current compensation. I thanked him for the offer but declined. I am valued at Apex not just for what I can do but for who I am. The following month, I launched a mentorship program at Apex, specifically designed to help engineers understand their market value and advocate for fair compensation. The program became so successful that industry publications featured it as an innovative approach to talent retention. Looking back now, being fired for earning too much was the push I needed to discover my true worth. The experience taught me that loyalty must be reciprocal, and that knowing your value is not just about salary, but about respect, appreciation, and opportunity. The corporate world often conditions us to believe that dedication to a company will be rewarded, but sometimes the greatest career growth comes from leaving comfort behind. My termination, initially devastating, became the catalyst for a better career, improved family life, and the confidence to advocate not just for myself, but for others in the industry. Have you ever been undervalued at work and found something better? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more career insights. And if you know someone who is staying too long in a toxic workplace out of misplaced loyalty, share this video with them. Thank you for listening to my journey from betrayal to triumph. Remember, your skills have value, and the right employer will recognize and reward that value. Never let anyone convince you otherwise.